Good evening. It is the 26th of July 2023 and you are watching Prime Edition. Now, the Kisumu business community lost close to 1.5 billion shillings in just 3 days. This, mark you, is during the back-to-back Azimio-led anti-government protests last week. We have a comprehensive story on the cost of demos from the lakeside city of Kisumu.
And a tweet from President William Ruto last night set tongues wagging. It read, in quote, "My friend Raila Odinga, I'm off to Tanzania. I'm available to meet one-on-one with you anytime at your convenience," end of quote. Begging the question, is a truce on the cards? It will be, or rather, that is a big question tonight, and I will be engaging Kioria East Member of Parliament, Kitayama Marwa, and Richard Yegon, who is the MP for Bomet East. Good evening, and welcome to Prime Edition this Wednesday. I am John Jacob Kioria.
Good evening, I am Regina Manyara, but first, the day's highlights. A real meetup this time. President Ruto meets his Tanzanian counterpart, but on matters for striking Africa's economic growth.
On Friday, we shall also announce the next steps forward with our anti-tax protest.
From hospitals to the morgues, Azimio leaders' long day with victims of demonstrations gone chaotic as their supporters light mourning candles.
Leo biashara iko sawa vile kuna amani, hakuna mapambano, hakuna maandamano. And
normalcy all the way. It's business as usual in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on a day lately associated with anti-government protests.
Anwangeshi is a sign language interpreter. My name is John Jacob Kioria. You're welcome to the broadcast.
And I am Regina Manyara.
President Dr. William Ruto says Africa needs skilled, productive and innovative workforce for improved returns.
While in Tanzania, during the Heads of State Summit on Human Capital, President Ruto said the proposal would speed up economic growth in African nations.
President William Ruto wants Africa to maximize its manpower to improve the regional economy besides addressing other challenges facing Africans.
I would not entirely agree that we should keep everybody at home. I mean, we live in a global village. I mean, if there are opportunities in America and we have young people who can explore those opportunities, why not? Or in Europe, or in other places. That's fine with me. But they must not run away because we have failed to provide opportunity at home. And that is why I am saying we must be deliberate. We must be intentional about creating opportunities for young people in our economies.
President Ruto said the sequence of development and unity policies in the region would position the continent as the global driver of a new industrial revolution.
The problem we always have is that there is an assumption that somehow, after a young person gets out of school or college or with a university degree, they will somehow figure out some opportunity. or somehow the economy will create some jobs. I promise you, I have been in this space for a while now. Opportunities are deliberately created. Otherwise, they will not be there.
President Ruto made the remarks Wednesday at the Julius Nyerere International Convention Center in Dar es Salaam during the Africa Heads of State Summit on Human Capital under the theme Accelerating Africa's Economic Growth, Boosting Youth Productivity by Improving Learning and Skills. The event was hosted by President of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu.
Upande wa Tanzania tuna commit kuendelea kuwekeza kwa watoto na vijana ili kujenga taifa lililo bora, na commitment yetu haitaishia ndani ya taifa lakini hata kwenye program zetu za kikanda, regional programs. Tutahakikisha tunawekeza ili tusome kwa wengine na wengine wa nchi jirani wasome kwetu.
The two-day summit sought to reactivate the timely investments in education and health to drive productivity, stimulate jobs creation, and unlock Africa's immense untapped economic potential. Irene Mchuma Odim, the Prime Edition.
State House has distanced itself from allegations that President William Ruto refused to avail himself for arbitration talks initiated by his Tanzanian counterpart Samia Suluhu, as alleged by Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga.
State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed says protocol was not observed, hence no official communication was issued on the said visit.
However, Mohammed says the head of state remains committed to resolving the political situation in the country.
He was speaking in Mombasa ahead of President Ruto's 5 days walking tour of a coast region expected to begin Thursday.
Wednesday morning in Mombasa, State House remained non-committal on the alleged failed mediation talks between President William Ruto, his Tanzanian counterpart Samia Suluhu, as well as the opposition leader Raila Odinga on the political situation in the country. According to Raila, the arbitrary talks aim to address the high cost of living and audit of the 2022 general elections failed to take off as the head of state was of no show. However, State House spokesperson Hussein Mohammed claims protocol was neither adhered to nor official communication issued on her visit.
Kila rais ambaye anakuja Kenya, or any president who comes to meet the president of Kenya, there are established protocols na Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Okay? So they will communicate and they will handle all the protocol, and of course we will know that a president or a visiting head of state or president has come to meet the president of the republic. Of course, that is not to say a president can come to a country or cannot come to a country for holiday or whatever. But for all the presidents that have come to meet the president of the Republic of Kenya, it has been documented. Aliyesema alikuwa hapa, I think that is the best person to address that question to.
Mohammed, however, insists the president remains committed to have a sit-down with the opposition chief, as stated on Tuesday night in a tweet.
He said he's off to Tanzania, and as always, he has before been ready, and is always ready to have a discussion with him. And of course anyone else. That he has said several times.
The State House press chief further defended the government on allegations of police brutality, saying the independent body was acting as mandated by law.
We respect the independence of the police and all the other institutions.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto is expected to begin a 5-day working tour of the coast region on Thursday. The tour that will commence in Lamu County before moving to Mombasa County on Saturday will address matters touching on food security, maritime affairs, the blue economy, as well as the social welfare of the people.
During the tour, he will inaugurate, commission, and inspect different and several government projects that directly impact the ordinary Kenyan, aligning with the government's bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which of course prioritizes economic transformation from the bottom up.
Juni Karisambele from Mombasa County.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition says it will announce its next course of action on Friday.
The team that had toured various medical facilities in the city to visit victims of the past demonstrations kept mum on any prospect of talks with the government, instead saying it will not tire until the Finance Act 2023 it claims is overburdening Kenyans is amended.
The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition led by the ODM leader Raila Odinga on Wednesday made an impromptu visit to the Mama Lucy Hospital to check on patients who allegedly sustained injuries in the latest 3 demonstrations. The facility saying it has received over 20 people following the aftermath of the protest. Shortly afterwards, the convoy of Azimio leaders made its way to the Kenyatta National Hospital on the same mission. Finally, the leaders toured the city mortuary and later converged at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation, where they lit a candle to remember the people who lost their lives during and after the protests. Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka said that the coalition will make public its next trajectory.
On Friday, we shall also announce the next steps forward with our anti-tax protest. Let's make no mistake. Kenyans are still hurting.
Kalonzo taking issue with how security officers handle the protesters.
We will pray for our police to know that the people they brutalize, maim and kill are indeed their brothers, their sisters and fellow citizens.
However, former Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama has watered down Azimio's latest ploy, terming the demonstration as an economic sabotage.
But we are saying, come on board, we'll discuss. If not, we have a government in power. And I'm saying we have a government in power that was installed by Kenyans. They can go and wait for 2027.
In Migori, area Governor Ochilo Ayako led a team of locals in lighting candles as part of fidelity to the call of the coalition for a vigil.
We are lighting these candles to keep that flame burning. It must continue burning for justice. It must continue burning for freedom.
Similar events were witnessed in Mombasa, Kakamega and Kisii, with leaders calling on the country to remember those who allegedly lost their lives in the protest.
Tunasema hivi, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, wewe ndio kinara wetu. Usisahau wale walikufa. Usisahau wale waliumia.
Maandamano iko kwa katiba na sisi hatujaribu kitu ya mtu.
So we have come to light the candles today, which we have done very peacefully.
The coalition has asked Kenyans to pray for the people who have lost their lives and others who are currently nursing their injuries in various hospitals across the country as they vow to say their next course of action later this week. Abdiaziz Hashim, Prime Edition.
Let's stay on that story a bit. Activities in the capital city of Nairobi remained normal Wednesday, a day in which the opposition had slated its weekly anti-government demonstrations, only to beat a retreat.
A spot check by KBC Channel 1 revealed that the Central Business District was a beehive of activity, with a contingent of police officers stationed at various spots in the capital city, just in case of any occurrence.
Azimio leaders called off the street demos planned for Wednesday and instead announced a solidarity parade and vigil for victims of the deadly protests.
If the calls by the opposition for the weekly street protests are anything to go by, Wednesday will have been another day characterized by chaos and running battles between the police and protesters. But the announcement by the opposition to cancel another wave of the anti-government protests lined up to start Wednesday changed the whole scenario. In the Nairobi CBD, traders lauded the move by the opposition, saying the calmness experienced today should be the norm.
Leo biashara iko sawa, vile kuna amani, hakuna mapambano, hakuna maandamano, na tungependa watu pia watulie. Kama ni uchumi, kila mahali uchumi ni mbaya na maisha ni ngumu, lakini sasa kukuwa na amani tutafanya kazi.
They said that despite the normalcy, things were still at snail pace.
Sasa tukisema kulingana na hizo siku za maandamano na saa hii, at least leo kuko kuzuri, si kama last time. Hiyo time nyingine tunaekelea kazi atuuzi, lakini kwa leo tunaekelea biashara inaenda vizuri, kuna watu although hawajajitokeza vizuri but ni kuzuri.
Raila na Ruto wakae chini waongee. Tunataka amani. Hiyo amani kikukua, kama imani iko, tunaweza kupata kazi, tunaweza kupata kila kitu, tupate tulipe nyumba.
Matatu operators revisited the past few weeks of demonstrations.
Station ya leo si mbaya vile kwa sababu at least kuna kazi kuliko ile siku nyingine ilikuwa ya maandamano.
Kweli hakuna maandamano imesimamishwa, biashara ndio iko lakini haijapiki venye kawaida.
Despite the cancellation of the demonstrations by the opposition, security was nevertheless heightened in different parts of the city. Michael Moniga for Prime Edition.
Kisumu County business community lost close to 1.5 billion shillings during the three-day opposition-led protest. This is according to the Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry Kisumu chapter.
Now, the Chamber's chair, Israel Regina, also revealed that several shops were looted and others raced down during the demonstrations.
The demonstrations that turned violent also saw at least 8 people killed and tens of others critically injured.
Achola Simon has that report.
These were the scenes in Kisumu County at the height of the three-day opposition-led demonstrations. Running battles between security agents and locals, rendering the lakeside city a no-go zone. The sirens, gunshots and tear gas blast went silent, loss of lives and injuries. 8 people confirmed dead and tens of others injured.
Because
the county government has since waived all medical and mortuary bills for those injured and killed as a result of the demonstrations. In the same breath, several property worth millions of shillings were razed and shops looted.
You know, demonstrations are of many kinds. There are demonstrations that are socio-political. Like the one we are having now is socio-political. The one they had in France recently was similar. And France and Kenya are many years apart in terms of development.
Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry Kisumu Chapter Chair Israel Regina is now estimating the total loss to about 1.5 billion shillings just for closing businesses on the demonstration days, while the true scale of property destroyed or looted is yet to be established.
We lost business for not just 3 days, but almost for a week. As you know, Kisumu is a corridor, transport corridor, northern corridor, and a lot of cargo pass through Kisumu. Kisumu is also a consumer of goods from outside.
Mahesh Patel, the director and proprietor of Pramuk Cash and Carry wholesale outlets in Kisumu County, is one of the businesses men affected by the demonstrations. Mahesh wants proper security deployed during demonstrations to ensure private property is not destroyed.
But on 19th July, what happened is very bad for me. Because after doing hard work for years and years, now today I have come at the ground level. I tell you one thing, demonstration is good for the country, but the way it is being done is not good.
He says continued looting and destruction of property may have far-reaching consequences on investor decisions to set their businesses in the country.
Since I have been in this country for all these years, even I had planned to open other branches also. When I am opening the branches, does not mean I want more and more money. No, I am not going with the money. One day I will have to leave this country or this earth even. I am not going with anything. But whatever I am doing, when I open one branch means I am giving many people job.
The mere fact that costs of living is going up, it now becomes a national issue. It's not an issue of any political party or a politician, because everybody feels it at his or her own position.
Achola Simon, Prime Edition, Kisumu County.
Time for us to take a first breather on Prime Edition, but just a reminder, that story and of course what ran before, that's about the truce, or suspected truce between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga, forms the basis of our conversation. In studio we'll have Kitayama Marwa, the Member of Parliament for Kioria East, as well as Richard Yegon, the Member of Parliament for Bomet East.
afraid. In a Rastaman party, and challenge the room, challenge the day. In a Rastaman party, smoke, drink, and love my girl to some reggae. I call her on the phone, tell her I'm coming up, so get slow.
심각하다니요. 그게 무슨 말씀?
환자 의학적으로 할 수 있는 건 다 한 상태입니다. 이제 환자의 의지와 기적을 바랄 수밖에 없습니다.
Welcome back. Indeed, you're watching the Prime Edition. Police in Meru County are investigating an incident in which 3 family members were shot dead by an unknown assailant in Varenta village of Mutuati sub-county, Igembe North.
Now, according to Nicholas Mkara, one of the family members who escaped unhurt, the assailants attacked them as they harvested some crops from their shamba.
Pasua tumbe kamaliza vitu ya tumbe yote. Mradhangu na pigo risasi ya kifua. Ogua na mambo brother mwingine walikuwa na yeye. Walipiga marisasi ya kifua.
Sasa kama saa hii tumetuma watu watatu na tukituma watatu mwaka wa mwingine kule tutatoka wapi? Sasa serikali tusaidie. Serikali tusaidie.
Patrol ziwe zinafanyika huko Njangwani sa kila wakati ndio at least watu wetu wakuwe safe.
All right, senators have faulted a section of cabinet secretaries over what they termed as constant snubbing of plenary sittings normally held on Wednesday.
While regretting that it has been a trend for some of the cabinet secretaries to present last-minute apology letters, thereby disrupting business of the House. Senators called for surcharging of CSs who failed to appear before the Senate and to avoid similar trends in the future.
To write to this House, Mr. Speaker, barely 12 hours before our sitting to tell us that you are not appearing because you are globetrotting, Mr. Speaker, that cannot be taken kindly, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, even as you direct the Secretariat, Mr. Speaker, to write to these 2 CSs, you must express the displeasure of this House to them, Mr. Speaker. This is totally unacceptable. It needs to be firm. It needs to be decisive. They need to be put in the know, Mr. Speaker, to know that this House did not take kind to their appearance.
I would request that in all matters that the Senate does not defer to the executive. Otherwise, they feel we are a footnote in all their business, and therefore our business can wait, and they can on short notice tell us that we can hold on because they have more important business to do as the executive. Mr. Speaker, it has been suggested that the CS be surcharged.
Just need now to penalize them and let them feel the consequences. Otherwise, we are dissatisfied on what they are doing and the kind of notices they give us the last minute.
My request to the chair would be use your position so that it does not become very frustrating and very demotivating for us, especially in the committees that we share, that we are at times even seen by some members of our committee like we are shielding the executive. We are not, Mr. Speaker.
Kwa Treasury, tumemwita amekosa kuja kwa committee 5 times. Na kila wakati anasema ana shughuli. Hiyo shughuli yako nayo kubwa kuliko kuserve wananchi wa Kenya ni gani? Na sasa nilikuwa nafikiri ni kwa committees tu peke yake. Sasa hata mbele yako Bwana Speaker wanaleta tu huu msaa. hii iwe ni funzo kwa wale wengine, hawa wachukuliwa hatua kali kabisa.
President has clearly stated in this country that the ministers should appear before Parliament. These ministers should know that they're not appearing before us as individuals. They are appearing before us because our key and first mandate in this country is what we call representation. We are the representatives of the people in this country. And when a whole minister who has an office that knows very well that he should be able to appear before Parliament and makes us a feedback that they are just not able to appear within not the required time, it is disrespectful.
Interior Principal Secretary in charge of Internal Security and Administration, Dr. Raymond Omolo, has called for sobriety when dealing with challenges affecting the well-being of Kenyans.
Omolo made the remarks when he met the National Government Administration officers in Siaya County, a meeting that comes on the back of a spate of violent incidents that resulted in torching of 3 houses belonging to a local chief, as Wycliffe Okech reports.
Principal Secretary Dr. Raymond Omolo was Wednesday in Bondo Sub-County to assess the security situation in the area. He then held a meeting with the local National Government Administration officers. The meeting follows a series of violent incidents occasioned by the opposition-led protests that led to the destruction of property, as evident here at the home of Walter Omolo, the Bondo Township Chief. PS Omolo used the opportunity to urge for sobriety on issues affecting Kenyans.
For me, is the use of violence to pass points or to communicate. It cannot be in this day and age that whenever there is a disagreement, whenever you are unable to persuade people to have your viewpoint, then you resort to violence.
Amid reports of the police using excessive force when handling protesters, Omolo called for objective reporting by the media.
It is also important to guard against blowing things out of proportion. And to me, this is where our friends from the media need to come in and support. You must remain objective. You must be impartial in how you report whatever goes on.
The PS further noted that the freedom to assemble and picket should not be abused to jeopardize the rights of other Kenyans, even as he termed a violent protest witnessed in the country as retrogressive. For Prime Edition, I am Wycliffe Okech.
A warrant of arrest has been issued for Nakuru County Senator Tabitha Karanja for failing to appear in court in a tax evasion case linked to Kioria Breweries Limited.
Separately, the High Court has temporarily stopped the surrender of firearms and revocation of firearm licenses issued to John Jomo Kenyatta, the son to retired President Uhuru Kenyatta.
More details in the Scales of Justice segment.
In a certificate of urgency filed through his lawyer, Senior Counsel Ngatia, John Jomo Kenyatta sought to have the Firearm Licensing Board and the Attorney General stop from revoking his firearm licenses and the surrender of his firearm without the due process. Issuing the orders, the court temporarily stopped the surrender of his firearms and licenses pending the hearing of the matter set for the 27th of September 2023. Additionally, the court ordered that he serves the parties within 7 days, after which the respondents will have 7 days to file a response. Separately, Nakuru County Senator Tabitha Karanja is facing arraignment after a warrant of arrest was issued by Senior Principal Magistrate Esther Kimilu. Kimilu, in issuing the warrant, noted that the senator failed to turn up for the court despite knowing the hearing of the case. The senator is accused of fraud linked to Kioria Breweries Limited. Elsewhere, Busia Senator Okiya Omtata has filed 2,500 pages of evidence in the case challenging the new tax law.
Look at the development side of things. It's well balanced. The borrowings are there. The loans are already declared, which are going to be the finance ABCD. So there's no deficit in the budget. So the question is, if through taxation we are raising enough money to pay our current expenditure and part of our development expenditure, why are we going onto the domestic market to borrow money that we don't need and pay heavy interest on that money?
Umtata says they are yet to receive summons from the 3-judge bench to allocate the hearing dates of the case.
I use Uganda because I come from Busia. Was 36 shillings. 2 days ago, I made a transaction on the board and the exchange rate was 20 shillings. So if the economy is bad all over the world, why is the Ugandan economy appreciating against ours? And Uganda is a very tiny economy. Why is it appreciating against ours? So things are not well, and we need to have an honest discussion.
The ECO suspended the implementation of the Finance Act 2023 on June 29, 2023. Ruth Wamboi for Prime Edition.
The spouse of a Deputy President, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, held a series of meetings with senior officials of international organizations in Italy to explore areas of collaboration in the empowerment of youth in Kenya.
Pastor Dorcas noting that the country has a huge population of young people who must be utilized for the country to realize its full potential.
This story and more in our county news roundup.
Expressed concern over the staggering 60% of the Kenyan youth who remain underutilized in contributing towards the country's economy.
Food security and mitigation must be done early enough so that we successfully finance the youth so that they can enter this space.
In Busia, cases of stunted growth among children in Busia County have reduced drastically, making it one of the counties making steady improvements in combating the health challenge.
20% to 15%. Hiyo ndio ilikuwa standard ilikuwa 20%, sasa tuko at 15%. So tumeimprove kabisa like 7%, which is very good. Na pia mambo ya underweight pia tumeimprove from 9.3 to 6.1.
In Kilifi County, narcotic drugs worth 25 million shillings were destroyed after a ruling by the Malindi Law Courts.
Mimi ningeomba waachane na hivi vitu kwa sababu hivi vitu imetuharibia jamii, imeharibu watoto wetu.
Kwa hivyo tunataka kuonyesha hadharani ya kwamba koti inatia bidii kuonyesha ya kwamba tunamaliza ulaguzi wa dawa ya kulevya na pia utumiaji wa madawa ya kulevya.
Elsewhere, the county government of Embu has disbursed bursaries amounting to 102 million shillings to needy students in secondary schools and vocational training centers across all the 20 wards in the county.
We are hoping this coming years tutaongeza hiyo bursary ikiwa kiwango ambayo tunaweza saidia wengine na wengine.
Finally, AIC Nyayo Girls High School is grappling with a severe water shortage that is putting the lives of students at risk, with the girls' sanitation and hygiene highly undermined by the situation.
We look forward to being assisted. We look forward to being supported. And I call to all stakeholders, I call to friends, I call the whole of the nation.
Marian Tenui for Prime Edition.
Now, can a parent's missed dream be realized by his children long after he's dead?
Well, this is a story of Jabari, a student who goes against all odds in efforts to realize his dead father's dream of becoming a professional rugby player.
Will he succeed? All this on tonight's episode of Cinemas and Theatre.
Jabari, endelea kufuatilia masomo yako.
The film Jabari follows Jabari, a young university student from a humble background who lost his father to a rugby injury. He is determined to achieve his father's vision by becoming a professional rugby player. Jabari has a brilliant opportunity in the upcoming inter-university rugby finals. He will, however, need to go against his mother's advice to focus on education, as she fears losing his son to what befell his father.
The film Jabari was inspired by the need for us as artists to tell positive stories. We need to inspire the world. There's a lot of hopelessness around us. There's so much forces. There's a lot that you keep fighting against, and sometimes you lose. And so there's a lot of hopelessness generally. And so this is a story that I saw as a story that can inspire someone. Actually, the film Jabari, the concept actually came from one of our students who later on became the director of the film.
Guys, retain the ball! Directed by Naz Sheikh and produced by Rachel Dianga, Regina's Jabari's cast members were drawn from the United States International University Africa Fraternity.
Our cast comprising students. Also we have staff, these are non-teaching staff in the university. Again, people who have probably never thought about film, but they have the talent. We also have some faculty, the lecturers who also have an interest. And you see, these are people who have the talent and they've never found an opportunity to exercise that.
Rachel notes despite most of the cast being fresh in film acting, Jabari was a success.
These students none of them had been to a professional set before as a filmmaker. And so sometimes you feel like, okay, this should have been done this way. But again, you realize that, okay, wait, I'm the one to guide them. The behind the scenes was much more exciting than what I've seen out there in the industry in my other sets.
Okay, actors ready, camera. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I've had the honor to operate in this industry in different capacities. At this time in history, I think we have the most vibrant version of this industry. I'm particularly happy about the fact that now we are able to distribute our films more easily compared to before, because the distribution has always been the perennial problem in the industry and in the larger continent.
Tangu nikuwe mtoi, all I ever wanted was to be a rugby player kama baba yangu.
Jabari has to ensure he's not distracted by all that is in his life, if only to realize his father's dream.
Next week's game, in this field, that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Jacqueline Masharia for Cinemas and Theatre.
Cheza Loto Moto. Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above. Cheza Loto Moto.
Wewe uone una laana kukuwa na dini.
Sema wewe pamba, mimi ukindo nyanike ni juani.
Pili, anatamani kumwona mtoto wake na labda nataki kumruhusu.
Unaonekana ni mwanamke mzuri sana. Wewe ni mwanamke mtulivu. Huna maneno mengi. Hata yeye pia alikuja hivyo hivyo kama vile nyinyi mlivyokuja.
Safari hii umepata kiboko yako. Kalale macho.
Asante kwa kuitikia wito wangu.
Uchunguzi bado unaendelea. Na nakwapia kama ulihusika nitajua.
Now let's speak business. The government has commenced a public awareness campaign to help in the realization of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Principal Secretary for Parliamentary Affairs Aurelia Rono says this will offer a platform for open dialogue, allowing citizens to be engaged and participate in government's legislative agenda.
The government had identified various strategies aimed at revitalizing Kenya's economy through the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. However, an efficient, cohesive and coordinated legislative process is key to the actualization of the development priorities. The State Department of Parliamentary Affairs in the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary has commenced a series of roundtables with the different ministries in a bid to offer a platform for open dialogue, allowing citizens to be actively engaged in the government legislative agenda. Principal Secretary in the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs, Aurelia Rono, says there is a need to harmonize efforts and resources in addressing the challenges facing the implementation of bottom-up economic transformation agenda goals.
May I report that we have been deliberate in ensuring that the OPCS panel is supported by partner officers from government. It has representatives from the Office of the President, the Office of the Deputy President, National Treasury, the Office of the Attorney General, the Kenya Law Reform, and KIPRA.
The PS further called for concerted efforts within government agencies for the effective realization of development goals.
Trying to fine-tune our agenda, especially the better agenda, and look at possible ways to execute our program in a more efficient manner. And we realized that even as we came into office, there were serious policy and legislative problems and issues which required attention.
Frederick Muki for Prime Edition.
Good governance is key to socio-economic well-being of Africa. Governance experts say that many African countries are still struggling due to poor governance that is breeding corruption in many public institutions. Yawa Hansen, a leadership and governance consultant from Ghana, says that the African government needs to strengthen public participation in key decision-making processes. Hansen spoke to our reporter, Nancy Okware.
According to the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance, Kenya has improved its governance rating in the last 10 years, ranking number 13 in 2022. The report, which is published every 2 years, says the country has created various mechanisms like the 2010 Constitution and the Office of the Ombudsman, among other institutions, aimed at addressing good governance. Yawa Hansen, a leadership and governance consultant from Ghana, says that citizen involvement in entrenching proper governance is key.
Placing citizens at the center of public service delivery is one of the urgent cries coming out of this. Institutions that provide security, for example, being reliable, being able to have a positive interaction with citizens.
Hansen says there has been a notable decline in democracy in Africa.
We were privileged to have Afrobarometer, which they surveyed about 36 countries in all. But 7 out of 10 of them on average agree that democracy is great. However, we've seen a lot of decline with the military actions in different countries. One of the alarming statistics had to do with young people's perceptions of whether or not their governments are delivering. And we're seeing that year on year, the perception is slanting towards the negative.
Some of the issues that have been identified to contribute to a steep decline in democracy in Africa include lack of trust in governments to deliver, perception of corruption and inefficiency by governments, among others. Stakeholders attending this year's Africa Drive for Democracy conference in Tanzania have urged African governments to create strong institutions that deal with corruption and embezzlement of public funds.
One of my personal hopes is that as we continue to spur on initiatives like the Africa Drive for Democracy, it will help with institution reform so that across Africa, we will rethink how we build the institutions that govern us. And we will prioritize excellence because strong institutions are built on the backs of strong talent. And public service is such a high calling. And I hope that more and more young people will say yes to it.
Yawa says despite governments being tasked with delivering to the citizens, they too have a responsibility such as paying taxes and entrenching a culture of patriotism.
One of the participants talked about the fact that most African citizens, actively avoid taxes. And so governments are often hamstrung and unable to really attract the resources that are necessary to further the development that citizens are crying for. And so there's joint responsibility.
Nancy Okware, Prime Edition.
National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndongo says the middle class have a major role to play in economic transformation of African countries. Professor Ndongo says the middle class are innovative and investors at the domestic level whose spending drives economic growth.
growing the middle class is the one that is going to help us in terms of reversing this trend, especially the demographic dividend, the peace dividend, and all the dividends that you can think about. And that is something that we believe that the institutional quality and functioning markets is going to support, is going to boost that middle class. Why do I say this? First, they have a preference for peace. Second, they are the innovative group, and they are the investors at the domestic level. And of course, their consumption levels on average are much higher, and they are keen for markets to work. I've seen studies that are linking school feeding programs to smart agriculture and to climate change. You can imagine that for itself, in terms of that linkage, is going to be very, very important.
The National Assembly has kicked off the consultation process aimed at capturing stakeholders' comments on the proposed Food and Feed Safety Control Bill of 2023. The government-sponsored bill seeks to ensure food is safely produced, distributed, processed, marketed, and prepared for human consumption from the farm to consumption.
The Kenyan food value chain is regulated by multiple players through a plethora of policies and regulations. These include the Public Health Act, the Dairy Industry Act, the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate Service Act, the Kenya Bureau of Standards Act, Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Act, among others. The government plans to consolidate the activities of all these institutions by creating a legal entity to regulate food safety in Kenya from farm to fork through the Food and Feed Safety Control Bill 2023.
We can ensure a harmonious and streamlined approach to food and feed safety regulation in our country. While recognizing the importance of international standards, it is essential to highlight that the inclusion of Kenyan standards in the bill is meant to diminish the significance of international guidelines.
Your amendment seems to have taken out the requirements and just leave the food and also bringing the Kenya standard.
When we analyze the effects of the alcohol that has met your standards, is wreaking havoc in Mount Kenya region. Where does that leave us in terms of then our standards versus the international standards?
The standards that Kenya Bureau of Standards develops in consultation with all stakeholders are the ones which are recognized in Kenya, and they are the ones which have said they are based on the international standards.
Stakeholders in the food value chain say a lack of proper safety standards and inexistent traceability process have denied Kenyan produce from accessing the lucrative international markets.
We should have another clause that provides that in case of trade-related issues, the competent authorities should also ensure they have capacity to certify as per the market requirement.
If we adopt the international, your act still takes precedence. So if the committee is of the opinion that we take international standards, then we have to amend this section 21.
But we must enforce them to adhere to the international standards for purposes of competitiveness and even for safety of the production that we make here.
We should also have our interests as a country at heart, so that then we'll be able to produce standards that will help us.
The bill also seeks to establish the Office of the Food Safety Controller, which will be tasked with overseeing and coordinating the efforts of various governmental bodies responsible for food and feed safety.
The controller should assess the mechanisms, procedures, systems, set rules that are put in place by the competent authorities and not their activities as proposed, e.g. conducting of inspection.
In line with the Constitution, which recognizes consumer protection as a fundamental duty of the government, if passed, the legislation will clearly define roles of both the county and national government in ensuring supply of safe food and feeds to consumers. Trevor Ngendo for Prime Edition at Parliament Buildings, Nairobi.
Well, that seals it for business. A quick breather. We're back with sports.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial star 570 hash. Wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial star 570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stakes zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Look, I'm not going to allow you to make fun of me. Rodrigo, it isn't the right time for this, especially not now when I'm expecting your baby. Tell me, why did you lie to me, Daddy? How could you make a fool out of me?
I was thinking maybe we could see each other tomorrow. Are you free?
Well, all right, I'll let you know. But who are you? I'm your worst nightmare.
I'm the young boy they were talking about.
Las Bandidas.
Very good evening to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Prime Edition Sport. Now, Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba has reiterated the government's support towards East Africa's joint bid for the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations. The Cabinet Secretary made the remarks while welcoming a delegation of inspectors from the Confederation of African Football (CAF), who started off a two-day tour to assess Kenya's readiness to host the 2027 event.
The tour started with a meeting between CAF delegation and Ministry of Sports officials before visiting the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani. The inspectors then toured Nyayo National Stadium before ending the day at Ulinzi Sports Complex. Sports Cabinet Secretary Ababu Namwamba is optimistic Kenya will meet the Confederation of African Football standards and get the nod to host the biggest African football showpiece.
The money we have spent constructing all sorts of little things all over the place. You have a little stadium here, a little stadium here. That money should have been pooled, ideally, to first of all upgrade the facilities we have. Honestly, if you intend to continue living in your house, you fix the leaking roof before you build another structure.
The CAF delegation will Thursday inspect the Kipchoge Keino Stadium, University of Eldoret grounds, Eldoret Referral Hospital, before ending the two-day tour with the inspection at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport.
You know, it is shameful that today Kenya does not have a single stadium that meets the basic CAF requirements. So even AFCON aside, we need to elevate our facilities to a level where our teams can play in the right environment.
Kenya in May submitted her bid to host the biggest African football showpiece in conjunction with Uganda and Tanzania, dubbed East African Pamoja.
For me, nataka tukue ready. Ingine siasa itafanya tofauti, lakini si tukue ready. That's for me. We are competing with big nations. Wametoka Algeria, wametoka Senegal, wakakuja hapa, wanaenda Botswana, wanaenda Nigeria after that. Si tukue ready.
Botswana is also on the race to host the tournament, as well as Algeria and Egypt. After a successful day one inspection of the Moi International Sports Center Kasarani and the inspection of the Nyayo National Stadium, the CAF inspection team will be on their way to Eldoret tomorrow to inspect the Kipchoge Keino Stadium. For Prime Edition Sports, I'm Daniel Mwendwa.
Moving on is that the Kenya Para-Volleyball team has stepped up preparations ahead of the first African Paralympic Games, slated for the 3rd to the 12th of September in Accra, Ghana. The team of 24 players is currently camping at the Kasarani Stadium in readiness for the Continental Championship.
A team of 24 players, 12 men and 12 women, will represent Kenya in the first Paralympic Games in Accra, Ghana. The Kenyan team, led by Doris Atieno, has been non-residential camp for the past 3 weeks at Kasarani Stadium.
Maandalizi ya final squad ijakuwa mbaya, bado tunajaribu kufanya perfections. So far so good, training ni mzuri na naona kila siku kuna a lot of improvement kwa players wetu. Sana sana tuna perfect kwa zile areas zenye huwa tunapigwa sana na ile kitu imefanyanga tunakosa kuqualify ama ile kitu inakosa tupate namba mzuri inakuanga part of preparation.
Atieno said the team is focusing on their weaknesses so to build a strong team for the tournament.
Except the fact that training is always tough. The coaches are telling us that we train hard so that we'll win easy.
We feel that we've prepared adequately for the competitions, and kwa sasa tunaona mazoezi imeshika kabisa, na we want to promise our leaders, the government, that we will not let them down.
After the Paralympic Games, the team will shift focus to the World Championship qualifiers slated for November in Cairo, Egypt. Kenya bagged bronze in women's category at 2019 Africa Sitting Volleyball Championship held in Kigali, Rwanda. 4 players, both men and women, are intensifying their preparations ahead of all African Games slated for September at Accra, Ghana. For Prime Edition Sports, I'm Kioria Mwangi.
Now moving on is that Namibia got a 7-wicket win over Kenya. And this is at the ICC Under-19 Cricket World Cup qualifiers in a match played at the University of Dar es Salaam grounds in Tanzania. Kenya won the toss and elected to bat, and they were all out on 64 runs after just 30.5 overs. Stian Smith top scored for Kenya with 21 runs, with opening batsman Dash Panchani contributing 14. Maurice Gerhard Kariata took 3 wickets for Namibia. In reply, Namibia got to 67 runs for the loss of just 3 wickets in 16.4 overs to get the 7-wicket victory. Captain Alexander Busing Volschek contributed 19 runs, with Johannes Visagie adding 14. Kenya's next match is against Uganda on Friday at the Dar es Salaam Gymkhana.
Come down the track, hits it straight to the fielder, back at it. They'll come back for 2. Good batting. Very smart, coming down the track to the spinner, cutting the spin out and coming back for 2 runs.
Now, the Kenyan youth team that is scheduled to travel to the Youth Commonwealth Games in Trinidad and Tobago is expected to leave the country next week, with the games scheduled to start on the 4th to the 11th of August. Team Kenya will be represented in 6 disciplines, namely athletics, rugby sevens, swimming, triathlon, cycling, and para-athletics.
The team has been camping at Kasarani in Nairobi with the triathletes and swimmers based in Kilifi and Mombasa. As part of their preparation, they have undergone various training, including educational sessions with the Kenya Anti-Doping Agency in their efforts to promote clean sports and encourage fair competition in sports.
Just want to make sure that these young ones are aware that doping is a vice. Doping presents an unfair environment for participation, and doping is an issue which we really need to fight, because it negates the fundamental rights of all athletes to participate in a doping-free environment.
By equipping athletes with the necessary knowledge and resources through the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, ADAK aims to inculcate the youth with the same culture so they can avoid shortcuts and uphold the principles of clean sportsmanship.
NOC na Athletics Kenya hatutawalet down, tutaleta medal. Msikuwe na wasiwasi, tutaenda, tutangangana na kila kitu itakuwa sawa.
The head of education at ADAK, Dr. Martin Yauma, provided the athletes with vital information on the risks of using banned substances which are detrimental to their health and the need to maintain their integrity.
Moving on is that Japan have qualified for the round of 16 of the FIFA Women's World Cup after a 2-0 win over Costa Rica. The 2011 world champions sit second in Group C with a perfect record of 6 points and have yet to concede a goal. In another match played, Spain annihilated Zambia 5-0 to secure spot in the round of 16 of the competition.
Japan took the lead through Hikaru Naomoto in the 25th minute and made it 2-0 when Aoba Fujino sliced through Costa Rica's shaky defense 3 minutes later. Japan have secured a spot in the round of 16 of the World Cup after winning their first 2 matches.
Tight angle, but she makes the most
another match, Spain coach Jorge Vilda warned that there is more to come from his side after they thrashed Zambia 5-0 to progress to the last 16 of the FIFA Women's World Cup with a game to spare. Jenny Hermoso and Alba Redondo both scored twice as the Spanish secured a second successive win at the tournament in Australia and New Zealand. Spain have scored 8 goals at this stage and are yet to concede a goal, underlining their credentials as potential World Cup winners. Spain play Japan on Monday 31st July in a game that will decide the Group C winner.
But Hermoso puts it in. Here's Redondo with a chance for the 5th, surely. Yes.
Well, quite some introduction to the FIFA Women's World Cup for Zambia. Well, that's a sport for tonight, and remember, tomorrow it's 365 days to the Paris 2024 Olympics, so look out for that event. My name is Daniel Wahome. Time for me to leave, but John Jacob Kioria is coming up with the State of the Nation, and the question is a truce in the offing? And our guests are the Honorable Kitayama Marwa, MP Kioria East, and we also have got the Honorable Richard Yegon, the Member of Parliament for Bomet East. Have a good evening. Stick with the interview with JJ Kioria.
No member of this family should be working for this company now. And who else to trust if not family? Are you one of Joel's sons?
I need you to keep a close eye on Nick. I don't trust him fully.
He's nothing close to the truth.
Nick, baby. You've never been so big on character. What's changed?
Can I talk to you in private?
Yeah.
You cannot protect us all the time.
None of you can afford to be caught up in this mess.
I can wash my hands and let you handle this mess by yourself with Akina Jazz now your teeth.
There's someone trying to bring us down. Us?
Why do you think I'm here, Nick? Alice stole our data and document. Do you have any proof of that? You're working on it.
This is a matter of life and death.
Mtoto wetu ako na kisirani, sijui kama ni bibi alimchapa jana, ni drama yoe. Hani ni anyuki ama ni nini hino? Kupia Troa, is it part?
Ati?
Tupia artist Troa, is it a part? Young lady. Nilitumia mbolea yako kuchora. Huko unasema. Enda kwa labor ward.
Kwa labor ward ama kwa labor wafanyikazi? Ule kwa wafanyikazi.
Si ndio kwa labor ward.
Si labor ward.
Labor courts.
Labor ward ni pale ya mama kujifungua.
Sio huko. Why are you working with me, mheshimiwa? Kwa nini? Nauliza.
Mimi naaguna na wewe.
Askari. Anga utakwenda kupangana kwa tayari mheshimiwa. Anga waache tuongee na mama. Unaelewa?
No, this is a school, not an organization. Being a student leader is a privilege. So if all of you have settled for Kamene, Kamene it is.
Thank you, Malimo. I might be soft on the outside, you guys, but inside, I am tough.
Only Andy will meet at the mall is you. Pay me in Kenyan shillings, bwana.
Mr. Tisha.
I will copy research on.
The stage is set for a showcase of global talent as Kenya hosts the World Rugby Under-20 Trophy for the second time from the 15th to 30th of July at the Nyayo National Stadium. This year's edition will see 8 teams battle over 4 match days for a place in the World Rugby Under-20 Championship in 2024. Catch the matches live on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Time for our conversation on the state of a nation. In our conversation tonight, the question we ask is a truce in the offing? That is obviously based on what we had the Honorable Raila Odinga say about the Tanzanian president, offering to mediate in Kenya, and what the president tweeted yesterday, that he is available if the Honorable Raila Odinga wants to talk to him. That's the question we are asking tonight. In studio, I'm joined by the Honorable Member for Kioria East, that is Kitayama Marwa. He actually neighbors Tanzania. He will tell us about that. And then we also have the Honorable Richard Yegon, the Member of Parliament for Bomet East. Both of you are very much welcome,
Thank you,
gentlemen, to studio.
Probably,
Mheshimiwa Kitayama, to start with you, obviously because of the boundary of Kenya and Tanzania, quantify for us the cost of these demonstrations as we were having them last week, and what it means for business between these two nations and the other neighboring nations.
Thank you very much for having me, and I want to take this opportunity to, greet our viewers and appreciate that they spend a lot of time watching KBC.
Thank you.
All right?
Yes.
Kioria is neighbors Tanzania. It's actually a long stretch of border, and we have 3 border crossing points. 2 are functional with customs and immigration officers, that is Isibania border and Nyamtiro one-stop border posts. And trade in that area is heavily food-wise. There's a lot of food that is coming from Tanzania crossing into Kenya. And about a week or so back, there was a serious problem because there was so much maize coming from Tanzania, and there was a problem with the Kenyan officials granting access for this food to cross to Kenya. In terms of the prices, there has been the prices have come down quite drastically, and I think it has been first of all occasioned by the influx of maize that is affordable from Tanzania. And now, since about 2 weeks now, we have experienced a bumper harvest in Kioria, thanks to the fertilizer subsidy that the President Ruto put in place. A lot of farmers went to the farms, and there's a big harvest as we speak. If you know the terminology that the locals use, gorogoro. Gorogoro is that a mukebe of 2 kilograms. It is now, before the harvest, it was going for about 300 shillings a gorogoro. Now it's down to 80 shillings. So and every homestead has harvested. So there's already, as we speak, a lot of food all over the place, and basically, and then also the sweet potatoes in big numbers. In fact, we've got a big harvest for the last 2 years. This year there's been a very big harvest. So yes, there's on the area of food, there's a lot of food that is available from that end, and the traffic is from Tanzania coming into Kenya.
All right.
And for that reason, I think the trade imbalance would then favor Tanzania against Kenya in that regard.
Well, quite interesting. But Mheshimiwa Yegon, there's no doubt the kind of losses that the economy incurs when we have demonstrations such as we had last week, and for 3 continuous days.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of hue and cry because of what the demonstrators has caused in our country, and I would like to say that I wish what the Azimio team could have done is to give us a chance as the Kenya Kwanza team, because Ruto just came in the other day. The president has just came in the other day, and I think he should be given time to demonstrate and showcase his prowess in terms of leadership. Where I come from, which is the South Rift, Bomet is in South Rift, and as my colleague has said, there is a lot of bumper affairs which is going to come in very soon. As we planned it a bit late, but I think some other areas are harvesting as we are talking now. And I am telling you, the prices of all these food prices are going to come down in due course. And what we were telling these our competitors or the people who are demonstrating, going to the street and putting on the sufurias as caps, to make sure that I think instead of wasting time and going on the streets, they need to make sure that they do like what Kenya Kwanza and what the president is doing, is saying, to make sure that at least they go to the farms. Because very soon we are going to sell them maize and we are going to send at the price we want.
All right.
Yes.
Quite an interesting one. But be it as it may, Mheshimiwa Kitayama, this is where we are. And of course, Kenyans complaining about the cost of living. But we are confronted with a situation where if obviously the Azimio demonstrations continue, it looks like it sabotages the growth of the economy. And then we've had their attempts to, have a reconciliation kind of a truce between the president and the Honorable Raila Odinga. The president yesterday, while exiting to Tanzania, says he was ready for the talks. The question is, as a ranking member of the Kenya Kwanza administration and from the UDA party,
yes,
is there a truce in the offing?
I think we get lost. Truce for what? President William Ruto has no problem with the former Prime Minister to warrant a truce. So I think we must say this as it is. The opposition, when they started their clamor, these mandamano things, what they sold to Kenyans was that they want the server to be opened. They said they want a new IBC reconstituted and they want to take part. They said they want the Cherera Fort to be reinstated. They said they want the cost of living to come down. Those were the four things that took them to the streets. That's what they told Kenyans. My brother, you don't hear that anymore. They have now since dropped the server thing. They have dropped reconstitute IBC. You don't hear that.
Really?
They have. I mean, when was the last time you heard them talk about it? They don't talk about reinstating Cherera. Cherera is and her team. They are long forgotten, just like the poor souls that died the other day because of these unnecessary demonstrations. They will also be forgotten after the candles that they are currently lighting go off. And this we must tell them to their faces. They came in and said, okay, now we want, the president was magnanimous enough to say, now let's talk. And this talks thing, since the things you're talking about are structured, how about then you go do it in parliament, which the former prime minister accepted. And that, as it should be, we expected that as a statesman, he needed to do that. Right? So talks started. Then these guys decided, no, now we don't want talks anymore. Oh, now remove Kainan. Oh, it became a problem. They forgot about these others. They said, now remove Kainan. All right, Kainan was removed. Oh, no, why are you interfering with Jubilee? Because suddenly the former president, Uhuru, lost Jubilee. And, now we are going to the streets because of Jubilee. All right? Even before that could be done, they said, stop raiding Azimio members of parliament. Before that again, now why are you coming to our strongholds? When President William Ruto, as he should, because he's the president of this republic, goes to Nyanza, they are like, why are you going there? They demonstrate.
You're saying there's a shifted goalposts from the Azimio side?
They don't even have a goalpost anymore. I think they've handled it so much that it's broken, that they don't know what they want. Then they're now saying they want direct talks between the president and the former prime minister to talk about what? Because lowering cost of living doesn't need Raila and President William Ruto to sit down and talk. So if they sit down and talk, now you tell me how that brings down the cost of living? It doesn't. Okay. So whatever they are looking for is hidden. What the former prime minister is looking for is a handshake. He should just come out and tell people, look, I am so desperate, I'm looking for a handshake.
We will talk about
the only person who can give a handshake is President William Ruto. I want to talk to him. So the issue of the mediation, because you asked me about it. Let me tell you, the tweet that you saw the president release, he's just simply saying, I don't need any other third party for me to talk to you.
And
neither do you need any other third party to talk to me.
Because we'll talk about that tweet and of course the mediation beat. But Mheshimiwa Yegon, obviously the big question here is, because why the Azimio side says it opted out of the bipartisan talks that Mheshimiwa Kitayama is referring to, is the lack of good faith. And I think I had the senior counsel Otiendo Omolo repeat the same, that there lacks good faith, and it appears like the bipartisan committee, particularly from your side, is being controlled from elsewhere.
Let me tell you this thing. Yeah? In fact, I think the counsel Otiendo Omolo is contradicting himself. This is because I want to tell you that by saying that, he need to know that also what he said yesterday was that he was waiting for the Right Honorable Raila Odinga to tell them what to do. So what he's alleging that the Kenya Kwanza team is being controlled from somewhere, is getting instruction from somewhere, they need also to know that we have leadership somewhere, which we are also consulting. And the way they are consulting Raila Odinga is also we are controlling President Ruto. And they need to, not to cuck us and say, you don't need to talk to whatever quarter. So what I can say is that, first of all, before even Raila Odinga start talking and talking about coming to see President Ruto, we need him to first of all to accept that President Ruto is the president.
Which I think he admitted yesterday. He has never
President Ruto. He has never. He has never accepted that he's the president.
Okay.
So we want him to address him as such, and also what we need him is that. What happened like the finance bill? This was something which was legally constituted. We participated, all of us, in parliament. It's only that we have the numbers and we passed the bill. They were there. They trusted. You saw it. We just walked out until past midnight, and they were party to it. And all these things we did it democratically. They have just run away again from these bipartisan talks. The bipartisan talks is that I don't know what they are afraid of. They are saying, you saw Otiendo Omolo talking yesterday saying, we are waiting for any information from above, that is from Raila and the team, to tell them whether they are going to continue with the same people or they constitute another team for this bipartisan talks.
Okay.
Yes.
Quite an interesting one. Mheshimiwa, as of course you bring in the conversation of mediation that you had started, there are those who say there is nothing wrong between these two sides, except one thing, hardliners. That the hardliners are the ones blocking a conversation between President Ruto and the Honorable Raila Odinga that would actually end what we are seeing on the streets. Do you think your side has hardliners? Which one of them could be you?
The unfortunate situation that let me give you an example. Every time you talk to a girl and you don't seem to be getting through, you look for every other excuse. Oh, it's because it was raining. If the bus had not done this, you blame it on everything else. There's nothing like headliners here. It's just us Kenyans who are just reasonable. That's all. And it just happens that Kenya Kwanza has extremely reasonable leaders. And President William Ruto has been open enough to welcome us leaders who are reasonable and who talk to him. And if he seeks our counsel and we give it, that make us hardliners. We are just reasonable. We are using common sense. Now, on the other side, when
you're talking about the mediation bit, why they don't need a mediator?
We don't need one. There's nothing. What is that? What is the crisis? Because I have told you that this Azimio guys, they have broken down this thing from the fore. They have meandered all over the place, And all of those things that they are talking about can be done differently. But they have now insisted they still want to have a talk between President William Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga. That is where it is. Now, what are they going to mediate? That is a question. If you can answer me that, then I'll understand the role of a mediator. Now, let's assume what is being peddled out there, that President Suluhu was here, Mama Suluhu. Let's assume she was. What was she coming to do? To mediate? No one is fighting the other. You know, we are dealing with cost of living.
What you saw on the streets, Mheshimiwa, you don't think is a crisis?
What? No, my brother, if tomorrow I decide to call people in the streets and tell them there is a crisis, that doesn't make it a crisis. And when my good friend Otiende Amolo, senior counsel, says that there is lack of goodwill on the other end, okay, so now they have a barometer to measure goodwill. Who is that is measuring goodwill? On Kenya Kwanza side, when we are going for these talks that they called, it is them with issues. So it's them to bring the issues on the table, and then those issues are canvassed on the table. When in the middle of canvassing the issues, you don't start saying now you don't have goodwill. I mean, honestly, that is not how you do it, unless you just want to run away.
Okay.
So as far as I'm concerned, my brother, there is nothing that is constituting talks. Talks to do what?
Okay. It's quite an interesting argument you make there. Mheshimiwa Yegon, you made reference to the Finance Act. And I think the press conference done by Azimio today after the vigil for the victims of the demonstrations was that one of the conditions for Azimio is the repealing of the Finance Act. Don't you think if there were to be any talks, that's a conversation you would entertain as the Kenya Kwanza side, seeing the public perception, seeing what they're saying is what has led them to the streets, that you would entertain such a conversation of repealing the Finance Act?
Let me tell you first of all about this repealing. Even if they repeal this thing, it is going to still come to the House. And coming to the House means we have to do the same business we have been doing. And by doing so, still we are going to win. It is just our the headline way of Azimio team doing, the way you have said, whereby we have always been very open. We have you have had Raila Odinga always hurling insult in the institution like the Parliament, the courts, and all these IEBC, National Police, and the judiciaries. And everything he cannot accept. Even after the judiciary declared Ruto as the president, he has been calling him a illegitimate president. And I want to say that we, as Kenya Kwanza, is trying to make sure that at least democracy is exercised in Kenya. It has been always not right. The way we have been seeing after every election, Raila Odinga just cry fall and say, I want election. We need handshake, nusu mkate. This thing, as Kenya Kwanza, what we need to show him that is that we won and we are not going to give in to his pressure.
That is the point you want to
That is, we want to put that across. What he's looking for, let him forget about it.
Should that proving the point come at the expense of probably a country's stability?
No, this is, these people are inciting the people, the innocent people. They are just going to fish people from the slums. All these people, the people who are even destroying the people who are destroying the Mlolongo, the expressway in Mlolongo. These people were taken from Njiru in Kayole and transported all the way. You had the people from the Kambaland talking about these people were not from our side. We don't know where they came from. We have never decided to do any protest. And I'm telling you, that is why you saw the government being very tough, telling the police to seal off all the areas, people not to come out of their residence, because they were being transported to some other areas. That is why you didn't see any demonstration on Wednesday and on Thursday and Friday. The subsequent days after the Mlolongo incident.
Okay.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Kitayama, Parliament typically is, the body we should trust with some of these things. And a majority is, it's okay for any party to have a majority in Parliament. It's democracy. But the fears from the opposition, and particularly from look at how Kenya Kwanza, of course, dealt with the Finance Act and how they passed it. The fear of the opposition is going by the majority numbers you have, and now the fact that there are other members of the opposition that have aligned to Kenya Kwanza. Yes. The outcome of this bipartisan talks could also likely be frustrated in Parliament because of the majority numbers that you have.
That is the beauty of democracy.
Yes.
All right. You know, first and foremost, Azimio now has jumped into the this finance bill being, stopped by temporarily by the courts, as if it is their thing. They should just thank Okiya Mtata that by some luck or something, he managed to stall the process. All right? But they are extremely guilty. They are also in court. Both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio participated in Parliament in broad daylight, and we were doing this thing to the wee hours of the night for 3 days running. So Kenya Kwanza and Azimio passed. Because that is what it is. When you vote, when the majority win, then the Parliament has passed. The media is not going to report that, Kenya Kwanza passed, but Azimio did not pass. No, it is Parliament that passed the bill. So both Azimio, and every time they open their mouth, let them know that they are also in court. They passed the finance bill. They did. And of course, unfortunately for them, while Kenya Kwanza was averaging 180 votes for each and every vote that happened, they had hardly 76. They don't have the numbers. And if you don't have numbers, just accept you don't have numbers. And you cannot hold a country ransom because you have no numbers.
Assuming that
wait for the next 4 years and you come back again.
Assuming that you don't have numbers, Mheshimiwa, and that's the primary question. Assuming obviously that you don't have numbers, the big question here is when Parliament is assumed as an independent organ or an independent arm of government, the fears from the opposition is that Parliament is slowly becoming an appendage of the executive.
The problem with Azimio is that they are crying about everything. When the judiciary seemed to be agreeing on certain one or two, issues that the president brought forth, like releasing, the independence of the judiciary and giving them funds and all that. Azimio was all over the place in this town crying that now, the executive has swallowed the judiciary. You understand? Now, suddenly, Okiya Mtata has given them a straw, form to hold on to, and now they are like, oh, now the judiciary is good, the bad one here is now Parliament. We were an appendage. No. We are 3 arms of government. The 3 arms are not detached from the body. We must accept that. If we are indeed 3 arms of government, and that is how the constitution is structured, then those arms are attached to a body, and that body is called Kenya. So yes, we are an appendage of Kenya. Yes.
You're an appendage of Kenya.
Parliament is an appendage of Kenya, so is the executive, so is the judiciary.
All right.
And in therein lies Azimio, and in therein lies Kenya Kwanza. We are all appendages of Kenya.
All right. I have about 5 minutes before I went up, Mheshimiwa. But I want to ask you, because this is what is important, from where you sit in a position of privilege and as a leader of the Republic of Kenya, because you don't just lead Bomet East.
Yes.
The big question in the minds of Kenyans at this point is, what next? Because you have the other side of Azimio has quite a number of people who are saying there's no need for handshake. And then there's also quite a number from your end who are saying we don't want anything that looks like a handshake. So the question is, what is the way forward for a country that needs to be stable, for a country that is in business?
The simplest way to this thing has been done is only that we need Raila Odinga to be in Parliament as the leader of opposition. That is why we are trying to create an office for the opposition leader. He needs to be in Parliament so that he can come and see how we are hammering the other side. Because I think he might be thinking that the Azimio team are not doing the right thing. So what we need him is, we need him to have an office in Parliament so that at least he can participate in whatever things we are doing in Parliament. He might be thinking that people are being bribed. the way he normally alleges. Those people who have come from the opposition, they knew that they're being, they were being boxed into supporting Azimio, which has never been. We want to tell, first of all, let me say, Raila, if he's dreaming to be the president, I think this is that was his last bullet. He has been talking about last bullet for the last.
The man has a way of reinventing it.
I'm telling you, let him live for even 120 years, and then you will see. You will just be seeing dust. We will show him dust as usual, because and he will never accept. I said the other day, Raila Odinga, even if he wins, he will start still going to protest.
Those are remarks. Those are your remarks.
The only thing I want to say, the other thing, the aftermath, when he went out today to light the candles, he went to Mama Lucy, he went to Kenyatta Hospital to see those who got in the wrong hands of the law, the wrong side of the law. And the only problem I was wondering is that he never even mentioned about the police officer who was killed and the 305 police officers who were injured. There are around 158 police vehicles destroyed, 9 police stations destroyed, 850 shops, businesses broken into, and we have also other buildings destroyed, around 200. And then another cases of assault and robberies, roadblocks, which the protesters did, around 69, 70 roads which were blocked by these protesters, causing a lot of mayhem and carrying stone, destroying property, stealing from people. They even said, these people who were, you saw when they were in Jacaranda, they said, we are asking the people who are owning the shops and all these people doing businesses, please don't close your shops. We will not be stealing anything or robbing anything. We'll just come and pick the things from the shops. What does that mean?
Very interesting. And Mheshimiwa Kitayama, of course, as we wind up, because there's that proposal that Kenya Kwanza has had, and I think it emanated from your first parliamentary group sponsored by Parliament that you had at Windsor as Kenya Kwanza members of Parliament. The idea that the president himself supports the creation of the office of the opposition leader. Do you think that's the antidote to what we're having right now?
That is one of. Okay. In my view, having in the office of the leader of opposition, and how I wish it could actually be sitting in Parliament. But for me, it doesn't really matter whether sitting in Parliament or not. But just having that office, so that you win an election, you go to State House, you become President William Samoei Ruto. You lose an election, you go to the office of the leader of opposition, you are now Raila Amolo Odinga. That is, then you have been assigned a job and you have been assigned an office. I think that would be one of it. And it is important. But then you did ask way forward. My brother, I would be very happy if indeed it was true that the son of the former president was in Mwea shooting birds. It would also be good that we don't shoot birds. It is against the law. It is unfair. Don't shoot birds for fun. It is wrong. It is also unfair, my brother, for the public to heed calls that they know clearly the consequences are dire as they are. The way forward is, please, public, don't be lured by any politician, including me, Kitayama. I should not tell you to go to the streets to do things you don't understand. Because when like now, we are being told there was supposed to be a secret meeting where Suluhu was supposed to mediate. And you public, you are out there in the streets, you are not even informed. Tells you how so irrelevant you are. Please don't go to the streets, you public. It is unnecessary. If you have to go to the streets, go because you want to go. Not because somebody has asked you to go. Finally, media. We must call you to order. Do you know, if you did not highlight this so much with a lot of pomp, but I want to at this point congratulate KTN. Allow me.
You can mention them here.
Spice, they did a very good thing. They had a round table. They condemned this, and that was good. I also must appreciate NTV. Also, they did that. I think it is important that when leaders are wrong, however big they are, call them out.
Okay.
Don't glorify them. Don't glorify their supporters.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you call us here so that we are at least giving comments that are bringing the country together.
All right. Thank you.
You continue covering Mandamano, you are fanning Mandamano.
You're about to hang. You're about to hang me. Mheshimiwa Kitayama. Regina, very quickly.
What I can only agree with our panelists this evening is that we need to embrace our biodiversity. We do bird watching instead of bird shooting.
Thank you very much, Regina. Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Richard Yegon.
Thank you.
From Bomet East for joining us tonight. Mheshimiwa Kitayama.
Thank you.
And of course, we take your challenge. As usual, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us and sparing your time.
Thank you so much.
This is how we put a cap on Prime Edition. God bless you. Have a fantastic night ahead.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Cheza Loto Moto.
Sasa unaweza jishindia instantly na Loto Moto. Dial *570 hash wakati wowote, siku yoyote ya wiki na mahali popote. Dial *570 hash. Kisha chagua moja kati ya games za Loto Moto. Weka stake zako 50 shillings, 300, 500, 2,000 shillings. The bigger your stake, the greater or the bigger your prizes. Cheza mara kadhaa na kumbuka, cheza responsibly. 18 years and above.
Cheza Loto Moto.